Chris.
Heath.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. There's tons to go through, so why don't you tell me?
I need your input on something, Heath.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. So we open up these podcast episodes with some lighthearted banter, right? To ease people into the show.
Yeah, you need that.
How long is an appropriate duration for off-topic chatter?
Chris, at least 5.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, I think lately we've been shooting for like the 2 to 3 minute range. We're snappy.
Okay, well that's good. You dictate how long the bit is by its lifespan. You don't try to put it on life support.
True. The reason I'm bringing up this topic
Why?
is...
Because other podcasts don't do banter at all?
No, the opposite. Another podcast I listened to recently took them 60 minutes before they started addressing the subject of the podcast. It was just off-topic chat and emails for 60 minutes.
Okay.
I think that's egregious.
Is it pertinent chatter? Like, is it newsworthy or of the moment? Or is this kind of like, you ever wonder why grasshoppers are so big?
I don't want to drop names and diss this podcast, but basically there was like a listener email arms race where listeners are increasingly writing in with more and more ridiculous questions for them to answer.
Well,
and they're humoring the listeners.
I like it when it gets more verbose or takes on a life of its own. But no, traditionally, if the banter goes past the 15-minute mark, it needs to be God tier. Otherwise, you gotta just snuff it out like a candle flame.
I think we're like-minded on that subject.
Okay, good. All right.
But should we aim for like 6 minutes? Ours are pretty short, 2 to 3 minutes tops.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have things excessively wacky to talk about. I'm not walking down the street and having people recognize me and then hilarity ensues.
Right.
The things that we would talk about are matching shirts that were unplanned, but that's no good for our audio format.
True.
And I got back from vacation, but no one really cares.
Well, maybe they do care. Do you think our listeners know who you are, Heath? Do you think they want to open a window to the life that is Heath?
Yeah, as much as they care about any other public figure. Maybe this is good for historical purposes even, because we're still in the pandemic.
Yeah, I want to hear what your vacation was like during COVID times.
Pedestrians, I would say 30 to 50% of them wore masks.
Where did you visit?
Ocean City, sorry.
Gotcha.
I didn't say Ocean City, Maryland.
Good to clarify.
It was successful despite what you may assume. We were still able to sit in restaurants and walk the boardwalk. There were just no shows, like no fireworks, no live performances. But that wasn't a make or break for us. We just wanted a beach vacation, and we got it. So we only went for 5 days.
Gotcha. What was the biggest highlight? Was it the beaches?
Bailey would tell you parasailing in the ocean.
Oh.
Yeah, that's when the parachute lifts you up in basically like a seat. And the speedboat is what drives you.
That sounds really cool.
She dug it, yeah.
And you were cooler on it?
I mean, I like indoors.
Oh, okay.
No, it was a lot of fun, and I would recommend it. But like, here's the thing: we did see wild dolphins.
Whoa!
On our second day.
Okay.
So just the rarity of that appeals to me.
Yeah.
And they weren't just like migrating; they were like frolicking and playing with each other in front of us. Granted, it was like far away, and it was like midday on the beach, so everyone's all like, "Wow!" And we were taking photos at the time, and Bailey is like pointing to me and saying, "Don't miss it because it's a magical moment." But I don't care about the animals. I'm trying to get a good photo of her, and I did. You should see it.
Okay.
But it would have been even cooler if during the parasailing beneath us were some dolphins playing or what have you. Like, we saw a bunch of wildlife. The only thing that passed under us was like a fishing boat. We called out to them, but they just flashed us like gang signs.
Oh, sweet.
So.
You were in the in crowd, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I feel like I know you better now.
Banter achieved.
Banter achieved.
Well, you know me, like when you do your post Mobius Tube's
documentary
media tour.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, what was it like with Heath? And then you can tell him all about the shady dealings that were had in the teens.
Oh, the episode teens?
The episode teens, yes.
Yeah, we don't reference those. Anyway, this
show called?
This show is called Mobius Tubes.
Yay!
And this is episode 45, being recorded on July 30th, 2020. And we have a jam-packed episode for you, which may not have seemed very clear based on our long intro, but I thought it was fun.
We're padding the opener despite our massive list of stuff.
That is true. So Heath, why don't you lead us off?
Oh, really?
I want you to start us off and tell me all about the games you've been playing recently.
Well, it's fitting that I just got back from vacation because that goes along with the title of the game that I beat recently, Gone Home.
Okay.
Because I have gone home after my vacation. That was a joke. This is a great game. It's really good.
I wasn't sure if you were going to like it or not.
Because I had what's it called? Tepid?
Yeah, tempered expectations?
Praise.
Tepid praise for what?
Tepid praise.
For what?
It's not tempered. Sorry.
No, it's tepid.
Gotcha. Yeah. Of what's inside Edith Finch.
Yeah. What remains of Edith Finch?
I don't care who developed that game.
Giant Sparrow.
I'm bad-mouthing. Sorry, Giant Sparrow. What remains of Edith Finch? Right, because it was too fantastical.
Which really appeals to me. But not you, apparently.
No, because I wanted it to be like a cool investigative... what is my foray into walking simulators? We did Stanley Parable together. We did Firewatch together. That was great.
And by together, you mean you and Bailey.
Oh, Bailey drives all of these.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because, I would crush it. No, I would, 360 no-scope the Revelation. That's not how walking simulators work. I thought it was great because it was the perfect amount of those cute vignettes in the form of Sam's narration. I'm talking about Gone Home. While still being a sleuthing, there is evidence everywhere. Crumpled pieces of paper that weren't meant for you. I love that touch.
For the listeners back home, this is an older walking simulator. Can you pitch them on the premise?
Really? Okay. You are a millennial young woman returning to her home, but they moved a bunch, and in search of your sister, because the house is empty, but you're really only there to meet your sister, and your sister has not responded to your messages, but has tons of notes and journal entries throughout the house that explain her disappearance.
Yeah.
Or her lack of appearance.
So we've got a mystery on our hands.
Yeah, and Bailey and Bailey thought it was fine, because the main character you're driving isn't the main character. It's the sister who you are exploring their life, be it their family life or romantic life. And I thought some of these things were so good, the way her childhood drawings would manifest as an allegory for her sexual discovery. I thought it was so, perfectly... We're talking Detroit Become Human, Marcus climbing up the hill levels of
metaphor,
video game execution of the literary device. And Bailey was like, I don't know, I keep bumping into hallways, and I'm like, no one gets me. But I thought it was really cool. Neat use of horror. There's it's a thunderstorm, so there'd be a random clap that would spook you, and secret passages where the lights would flicker out once or twice. But it's all explained in game, which is really, I like how grounded Gone Home was compared to Edith Finch, Stanley. Those are all off the wall walking simulators.
Sure.
The only thing that keeps it from being a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 is the music. You find cassette tapes of Sam's significant other performing with their rock band, and boy, does that music sound awful.
Does it?
I would have turned it off upon hearing it, but Bailey was at the controls, so she would still browse the room for evidence while this music is like really atonal, horrible guitar.
I see.
That's the strike against you, Gone Home. Should have made
Are
your
you
bad
saying
music
you
palatable.
You wanted the amateur preteens to have excellent musical skills?
There would have been a way to illustrate their lack of talent that would still have been pleasing to the ear. I challenge the soundtrack person.
I feel like that would defy the grounded aspect you like so much about the game.
Maybe it was too grounded. I might have spoke too soon. So that was Gone Home. I thought it was great.
Okay, yeah. This was among the first ones I played. I want to elaborate on one of your points briefly, and this is a spoiler. It's illustrating my favorite part about Gone Home. If you don't want to hear this and you haven't played the game, skip ahead. We'll have timestamps in the description. But I like the bait and switch of Gone Home, because you said it uses horror elements well. If you know nothing about the game and you approach this empty big house and there's this mystery and lights are flickering, it gives you the impression that you're entering into a horror game.
Where is the amnesia monster?
Right.
Yeah.
There's even things like you find out it's hair dye, but you see red liquid splatters in the bathtub.
Right. I forgot about that.
So it's clearly playing with your expectations. You think it's a horror game, and then it subverts it. It turns out it's not a horror game.
There's a seance for the owner of the house, Oscar, but it's just like girls doing Ouija board shenanigans. It doesn't manifest.
Nothing occult is happening.
But you feel the same anxiety.
Yeah. And then it just, instead of being a campy horror story, it turns out to be a pretty touching coming-of-age
love
story.
Yeah.
So the subversion there, the twist, that's my favorite part of Gone Home.
Like the part where you find out... Sorry, I stepped on you at the end of there.
No.
You want to... Okay.
I finished my thought. Go ahead.
Okay. The part where you find out that you, the player character, was like the straight-A student looking through the health homework, where it's just like, by the numbers, great job. And then you look at Sam's health homework, where it's like an awful story about a pregnancy gone wrong. And it was like there's tons of depth to every piece of thing you can pick up. We haven't even talked about the father's failed book writing journey.
So you did investigate that subplot.
Yeah, we exhausted it. It was awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
One cool thing about it is you can finish the game accidentally in like 60 seconds. I think there's like an achievement for doing that.
Oh, because there's the panel which has the key to the attic.
Right.
So you can just go right up there.
If you just get to the attic right away, you can finish the game.
All right, well, that's good on the speedrunners.
Yeah, I mean, apparently if you were in the driver's seat, you said you could 360 no-scope your way to the objective right away.
Dude, I would have just passed that Christmas duck between my knees and then smashed it open. And yeah, friggin', like, you know how, okay, so like speedrunning technique, sorry to non sequitur in the middle of this Gone Home wrap up. For game developers, you want to make sure that your dodge roll is not faster than your walking speed, because the speedrunning community will take whatever means of movement that is fastest and use it continuously. So if you don't want them to make a mockery of your game, because what's the Zelda game where this is the case, where like the roll is faster than your top running speed?
Probably Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, so you'll tune into a speed run of that game, and it'll be hours of Link just like like just speed rolling,
constant barrel rolls.
And like there's other games, maybe like Slenderman, where you're much faster jumping backwards. So
that's weird.
So you'll just turn the camera and just move, like slide across the environment, because they never tested for it. But
and you're saying you would exploit those phenomenon in Gone Home
if I had the controls, but Bailey was more tempered about it.
Traditional.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for bringing that to the show, Heath.
Yeah, I played a game.
That's an oldie but a goodie. It came out in 2013, which isn't even that old, but in the grand scheme of the development of the walking simulator genre, I guess it's kind of old.
I guess so, yeah.
Let's transfer over to me, where I'm going to segue into another game that you could technically finish right away.
Perfect. Oh my gosh.
And that game is, we're going to pick up the conversation around Outer Wilds. This is one of Heath's very favorite games, and as you will soon find out, one of my very favorite games as well, because I have finished the game, Heath. For listeners who don't know, Outer Wilds is an indie game that came out last year. You are a Hearthian alien, and you are part of the titular Outer Wild Ventures company, who is a space exploration company, and it's basically your first day on the job. You're a fresh new astronaut. You go out into your fictional solar system with wacky planets for you to discover. And as you go around and land anywhere you want, because as soon as you get the keys to your spaceship, it is completely non-linear. You can go in any direction you please. You were also the first person of your race to be equipped with this translator device, which lets you read text documents left behind by this old ancient precursor alien race who was also spacefaring around the same solar system. And very quickly you discover there's a mystery to solve, things to see, ancient secrets to uncover in this fictional solar system, and the game kind of takes off from there. So that was the premise. That's old ground we covered last episode, and Heath covered last year when he was playing the game. This game is so easy to spoil.
I did a great job, did I not?
You kept me in the dark in all the areas that matter, definitely. And replayability in this game is like
awful.
Literally zero.
Yeah.
I'll have to wait decades to forget the puzzles, if I ever forget them. Because once you know the solution to this game, there's like nothing else to be gleaned from it.
It's like the glass green door. Or no, I said that wrong. The green glass door.
The green glass door.
Yeah. You know what goes through the green glass door?
No.
Oh, man. Everybody listening, just send Chris emails about, you could fit a boot through the green glass door.
Can you explain this to me?
No, I'm going to let them do this.
Fine. Yeah. All right. So it's like the green glass door, apparently. Whatever the heck that means.
Where once you figure out the conceit, there's no replay value for you.
Right.
Yeah.
But the process of figuring it out that first time is a magical experience. We're going to have the full spoiler conversation.
Yeah.
Which I implore everyone to skip and not listen to if you haven't played this game. Outer Wilds, here's some of the highest praise I can give it. It doesn't really have the hallmarks of a Chris game. Like there's
no progression system.
Yeah, there's literally zero progression in the game, although you feel like you're progressing because of all the knowledge you're learning. But in terms of like skill point charts to fill out and level ups to get, that's zilch in the game.
No
Zero.
compelling story, character-driven dialogue.
Yeah. Characters you meet are basically text on walls. There's not a lot of development there. The puzzles, there's basically one way to solve them. Not a whole lot of agency in figuring them out. But despite all these things...
There is time management.
There is time management.
Albeit infinite.
Yes, infinite time management. So even though it doesn't have the things I gravitate towards in gaming, it's a game I can't help but feel like I need to recommend it to everyone. Even if you don't play it yourself, I feel like watching a stream of this game, just figuring out what the developers achieved with this game could be appreciated by just about anyone.
Is it Half-Lifean?
You're asking someone who's never played a Half-Life game.
Me neither, but can you imagine if we were at day one, we were first to discover Half-Life or Minecraft. We would be like, you got to play this.
Okay, yeah.
Because of how fundamentally novel it is.
Right, how it feels like a game changer.
Yeah.
More praise I can give the game. So I gave my impressions last episode at about the 6-hour mark. At that point, I was playing a very different game than the one I was about to discover. In those early hours, it was like, okay, I've got a whole solar system to discover, and I'm kind of doing like a highlight reel of visiting planets, doing like a surface level investigation, picking up some kind of assorted clues. I don't really know how they fit together, but it's all somewhat interesting information I'm learning. Yes. But then you eventually hit a tipping point where your brain starts to put together the bigger picture here, because Outer Wilds really has one puzzle in it. Sure, it's a very complex, multifaceted, segregated puzzle, but there's one solution you're working towards, and you don't even realize that at first. But once you get to the point where every bit of new evidence you collect slots into the larger narrative, it is astounding how it all coalesces, how one seemingly innocuous little fact you learn on the outer fringes of the solar system, suddenly your brain makes the connection how that could be applied right close to the sun, and you're blown away how it's all interconnected to a very impressive degree. All right, do we want to... This is the cutoff point where we're going to start talking hard spoilers?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. If you haven't played Outer Wilds, please skip ahead unless you never want to play it. And if you make that decision, you're making a wrong decision.
Yeah, this is all predicated on the fact that I watched somebody else do it and regret that decision years later.
Yes, I actually went back and listened to your commentary, Heath, and you coined a phrase, die before you cheat.
Is that what? Okay, yeah, I did.
That's how much you cared about the integrity of my Outer Wilds playthrough.
And you lived to tell the tale. So, spoiler talk.
Yes, spoilers now.
I stayed away from Brittle Hollow because of how scary it is.
It doesn't seem scary at first.
Bruh, if you peered over the edge and watched the light refract from your view.
So Brittle Hollow is the planet with the black hole at the core of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And as the time loop progresses, Brittle Hollow's surface integrity falls apart because its moon, a hollow lantern, is constantly bombarding it with fire. So Brittle Hollow basically decomposes and eventually the whole planet falls into the black hole.
That's why there's so many redundant subsurface little teleporty things, is so that you can still get around even after a few pieces have fallen in.
Gotcha. So yeah, Brittle Hollow was the first place I really went to, and I found the temporary colony right away.
Like the distress signal?
It is right by the distress signal.
The library and the forge, yes.
Oh, that's the Hanging City, which is like their more permanent establishment.
Uh-huh.
And the way you get there is by going on this ceiling migration, because they have the anti-gravity crystals that migrate you from the temporary settlement to like their big impressive one.
Okay.
And there's also at the South Pole, I believe, they have like a research station, but it's inaccessible from the surface. So you have to find the underground passage into that observatory or research place. And that's where I learned about the Giant's Deep rotation of the cyclone secret.
Are you telling me that you never played around with the cyclones before you had that knowledge?
I had visited them, so I knew they were there.
Okay, those are scary too. I thought if you got sucked up, you would die.
So it turns out the cyclones, if they're spinning clockwise and you got sucked up into one on Giant's Deep, it spits you out into space.
Into orbit, yeah.
Into orbit. The first time that happened to me, I had no idea what was happening because I was on one of the islands and all of a sudden I was in 0 Gs.
Yeah.
I had actually no idea what was happening until I came crashing down and died. But it turns out like one of the cyclones spins in the opposite direction. So instead of propelling you...
so smart. You never would have guessed looking at him.
It's the thing where it's staring you right in the face. It's hiding in plain sight. And it makes total sense once you do it. But until then, it's a secret. This whole game is about finding things that feel like cool secrets. So that spits you downwards, past the harsh currents, closer to the core of Giant's Deep. And you thought the giant electric field was scary.
Dude, I thought that the massive typhoon at the North Pole of Giant's Deep that you couldn't penetrate, I never got close enough to find out you couldn't penetrate it.
True. Actually, that was the case for me as well. I stayed away from it.
Yeah.
It was very late in the game when I figured out in the eye of the storm, there's a whole tower of quantum knowledge for you.
Yeah.
Which is that has one of the biggest revelations of the game. In there.
That one feels like it is the first thing you should do.
Giant's Deep or that tower?
The quantum knowledge, yeah.
Okay. That was probably like 2/3 of the way through the game for me.
Yeah, okay.
What questions do you have for me?
I just, did you ever try to land on the quantum moon without having the knowledge?
Oh, yeah. I totally did. The quantum moon, you try to land on it, and as soon as you enter the atmosphere, it goes poof, it disappears, and suddenly you're just back out in space.
Your lock-on will just go like, doo, and you're like, what am I missing?
There's a device that'll constantly like swivel around to point to where the quantum moon is currently. I didn't really use that. Yeah. I would look away and look back, look away, look back. Eventually it would be there. Because, so what I'm talking about here is the game's quantum mechanics, the uncertainty principle. There are frequently objects in Outer Wilds that are quantum objects, so that when a conscious observer is observing it, it's still, it's static. It doesn't change phases. But as soon as you look away, that quantum object could reappear elsewhere. Which other games have done similar things before, but I never to, I feel like, this extent. The climax of the game for me was figuring out the puzzle of the quantum moon.
Yes.
To figure out that, wow, I thought this was kind of like a novelty feature that you have this scout probe that you can launch and take pictures with. To have it be an integral mechanic that to lock down the quantum object, observing an image of one counts as observing it itself. So as long as you have a picture from your probe of the quantum moon, it can't disappear on you, and you can land on it that way. That was amazing.
So basically, when you met the living Nomai guy,
yeah,
because you send the quantum moon to the eye,
right?
The universe.
Eye of the universe. The ultimate goal of the game is to find the eye of the universe.
And you feel you're like so close.
You are so close. I thought that was going to be the end of the game.
Yeah.
I texted you about it.
Oh, okay.
I said, like, I think I'm at the end.
Okay, that's what that was.
And
okay.
the funny thing about the first time I met the Nomai girl there, it just so happens I was at the end of my loop and I died right before I could talk to her.
Oh.
So I thought that was like a scripted thing that happened.
Oh. Did you go back?
So initially I was like, there must be something I'm missing here.
Okay.
Because it cut me off right before the cool revelation.
Yeah.
Eventually I just got sick of looking for new cool info and just went back and tried it again.
Okay, and then you did the Mad Libs.
Yeah, there's a cool like translation thing you get to do, talking to this member of the precursor race. Yeah. So you get to point to things like, hey, tell me about me. Tell me about you. Yeah. Tell me about this quantum moon. So that's a cool exposition dump.
I guess I don't have any other questions than like, how did you feel when this, how long did it take you to figure out Dark Bramble?
Okay, let's talk about Dark Bramble. The part of the game that caused me the most frustration. I don't necessarily even blame the design of the game. This is on me. So Dark Bramble is the spookiest planet. It's basically
non-Euclidean space.
Yeah. You will enter these little seed nodes, and upon entering it, a space will be much larger than it appeared on the exterior. And it's all this soupy, foggy matter in Dark Bramble, and it's occupied by a bunch of scary anglerfish. Compounding my frustration with Dark Bramble, Heath, I have a phobia of deep sea creatures. The anglerfish were torture.
Oh no.
They really frightened me.
When you first encountered them and you're just like flooring it, yeah.
Yeah.
Awful.
And so you eventually figure out on a totally separate planet that the anglerfish are blind. So they're seeking you out through noise. And I made the connection, okay, I've got to be quiet with the thrusters because as you move around your ship, it'll make noise with its boosters and rockets and things. At the core of Dark Bramble, there's like this red node, which is very alluring because it's the only part that has color in this place. And you want to get there. And as soon as you get close to it, you're greeted with 3 anglerfish just like waiting for you. I tried this part of the game probably 4 or 5 times, every time dying and having to travel back from scratch because I had the right idea. I needed to be quiet. And as you drift past these anglerfish, looking at it, I thought I was going to like bump into their antenna. So I'd make the slightest of corrections and then they would eat me. So this is the first time I actually looked something up. I looked up someone getting past this part on YouTube.
You just have to give yourself lots of velocity at the start and coast.
That was another thing. Like, does momentum transfer? Evidently, as you enter a node, your initial velocity is reset.
Okay.
So actually, all you have to do to get past this part is literally not touch your controller.
I did, yeah. Didn't I say feather on the gas?
You said feather on the gas, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, it turns out the frustrating part, I was just shooting myself in the foot over and over again. The other frustrating part was I knew from cave paintings that there was a failed escape pod still trapped in Dark Bramble.
Yes.
This is also on me. I had even busted out like pen and paper. I had mapped Dark Bramble as I knew it. And it's a little tough to wrap your head around. I guess I have the advantage of it kind of feels like nested data structures if you're going to borrow that concept from like computer science.
Yeah.
So I had successfully mapped it out. I still couldn't find this place and I was getting really annoyed with it.
Did you use the launcher?
Your signal scope comes into play.
Oh, okay.
Which is a device you have that like picks up radio frequencies.
Yeah.
And you could use that to hone in on the escape pod's distress beacon and eventually find it in Dark Bramble. In the tutorial of the game, 20 hours earlier, you play hide and seek with kids.
Yeah.
And you have to find them with your signal scope, and you change your channel from the Outer Wilds default channel to the hide and seek channel. That's how you find them. And I had completely forgotten about that. And I had not used it since up until this point, 20 hours later, where you have to change the channel of your signal scope to go to distress beacon.
You didn't even listen to the fun rocks?
The fun rocks. Oh, yeah, here's the thing. As you get really close to the quantum rocks and you put your signal scope on it and it makes that eerie sound, it did that automatically for me. I didn't have to change the channel.
Okay.
So I had completely forgotten that changing your channel was a thing. So I had even busted out the signal scope to find this, to no avail, because it was on the wrong...
hide and seek mode.
Yeah, I was on hide and seek mode. So I had to look it up, and it was like, change your channel, bruh. And then I got it. So those are the 2 times I had to cheat in the game.
Okay.
I didn't feel like I really robbed myself of anything.
No, you didn't. No.
So that was the frustration I have with Dark Bramble, which is otherwise, I think, a cool concept. It was just the combination of anglerfish and not changing my radio channel that did me in. I want to talk about a funny moment.
Okay.
On Brittle Hollow, there is another tower of quantum knowledge. It's underground. It's totally like locked down from the exterior. You can't get in. The way that people used to get into it, there is a pathway straight up at 90 degrees that
it's like gravity floor.
Yeah, it's like gravity floor that you would walk up. Unfortunately, since so many years have passed, a section of gravity floor had crumbled, so you couldn't,
making it inaccessible.
And I had no idea how to get in here. So I spent like an entire loop of the game just like attacking this tower from every angle.
Oh, did you use the physics of the black hole?
So
to like slingshot you into that tower?
I didn't get that creative with it.
Okay.
But I was exploring every nook and cranny, trying to find the secret passage into it. Frustrated, having no success. I was about to give up. At which point...
When you hear this rumble.
When I hear a rumble. And so the Brittle Hollow, like we said earlier, is constantly collapsing.
Yeah.
Myself and the tower got sucked into the black hole after my loop of frustration. And suddenly, it spits you out on the other side of the solar system.
Empty space.
Into empty space, 0 Gs. And my mind is blown, Heath. That now all I have to do is float up in just 0 Gs. And I can get right to the interior of the tower. It's no big deal. And all you had to do was wait for it to fall into the black hole. That's all you had to do. It was so cool.
The core conceit of this game is so focused on time.
It's so focused on time.
For this challenge, you had to wait for the not sun station, but like the high energy lab. You had to get there fast.
Yeah, but not too fast. So you get there fast. It's at the bottom of a sinking city because Ember Twin is constantly being
sucking sand
off of Ash Twin, the hourglass twins, 2 planets that are in close proximity to each other. It's literally an hourglass. As Ember Twin takes on more sand, areas become inaccessible. While simultaneously, Ash Twin is becoming more and more accessible because the sand is draining off. It's so cool. But the high energy lab, you have to get there fast. But then you're greeted with this pit and like cacti, which are blocking the route to the high energy lab. So the first time I got there,
you keep trying to fly over there.
You keep trying to fly over. The sand column is pushing you down.
Yeah.
The cacti are puncturing your suit until you eventually just, I have to wait for the sand hole to fill up, don't I? You just wait a bit longer, and suddenly that hole is full, and you just walk across it. Mm-hmm. It's so good. The design that went into this game is kind of like mind-boggling. As soon as I finished the game, I binged Outer Wilds media and content. So I watched the no-clip documentary. Mm-hmm. And the coolest thing from that was in your home area tutorial zone, the Hearthian Village. It gives you some like tutorial areas. One is helping you navigate 0 Gs for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a cave called the 0 G Cave. It's your first time like playing with your jetpack and stuff. As someone who's played a lot of video games, you might assume, okay, you cross a certain threshold. The devs just programmed like a Boolean variable to keep track of true, false, is gravity enabled or not. And as soon as you enter the cave, the gravity turns off. and you can float around. But that's not the case. And the reason it's a zero-G cave is literally because the mass of the planet is pulling on you equally from every direction because you're at the core. So it's literally a simulating gravity, and that's what made it zero Gs. That blew my mind.
Well, yeah, you see the balls rolling around in the museum because gravity is acting on them.
Right.
Same thing with the Hourglass Twins. If you're standing on the surface of either one of them and jump when the other is overhead, you will jump higher than if it were beneath you.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the mass of the one overhead is pulling you up.
It's a totally realistic simulation of astrophysics and gravity.
With the exception of relativity.
Okay.
What's his face? The main head of development said that relativity was going to be way too difficult to implement. So they left that out.
Gotcha.
The fact that like time would slow down when you're circling the black hole.
Time distortion. Yeah. Gotcha. That was left out. So you've watched these clips too.
I think so. I mean, it was like you said, it was like right after beating it.
Yeah, and it's such a reliable simulation. The loop is 22 minutes. If you left the simulation to progress longer than that, eventually planets would like fall out of orbit and stuff.
Yeah. So you had to it was a delicate balance.
Right. So this is quite the like heady math project to make this game.
Did you ever try? Okay, so the reason you had to use the down spitting typhoon on Giant Steep was because the currents were so strong towards the core of the planet.
Right.
You couldn't pierce through the current.
Yes.
Did you ever fly out to the edge of the solar system? Gun straight for Giant Steep. You have to reach like a velocity of like 40,000 meters per second.
Damn.
If you reach that threshold, you can pass straight through the current and get to the core.
Just brute force it.
Did you know that?
Only because post-game, there's an achievement associated with doing that. It's called
Steam Sucker.
A Steam Sucker. It's called Deep Impact.
Because Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. So that's funny. It's such a realistic physics simulation. You can cheat the puzzle that way if you're so inclined.
Yeah.
And hiding inside the jellyfish as an insulation from the electricity current of the core.
Did you learn about that first on Dark Bramble, or did you just...
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no way I just tried that.
Well, I mean, they are glowing red and conspicuous.
True. They are the only thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that from the astronaut in Dark Bramble who hinted at it to me. So that was really cool.
I take it that you didn't destroy the fabric of space-time.
I did not, no.
Okay.
I got the legit good ending.
Do you know what I'm referencing by destroying the fabric of space-time?
Yes.
Okay.
You're talking about how there's a couple ways to do it, I think.
Yeah.
In the high energy lab, they were doing this experiment where they wanted to prove if whether or not during the black hole traveling, an object can actually arrive fractions of a second before it departs. So there's a black hole and a white hole. If you spit your probe through the black hole, it'll appear arriving just fractions of a second before it actually departs. And if you shut it down in that little window of time where it's actually arrived, but before it's departed, you duplicate the object and the screen starts shaking and you break space-time, the fabric of space-time.
And it starts playing like a kazoo cover of the main theme.
Right. It's just mocking you, and then the credits roll by really fast.
The other way to do it,
okay,
I think is you take the battery out of the Ash Twin project, and then you just stay there, I think. And then if you revisit it on a second loop, you can talk to yourself.
Oh.
Did you ever see
run
that?
into yourself?
Yeah.
I haven't watched that, no.
Okay. The dialogue is creative.
Cool. What did you think of the ending? Like the canon ending?
I thought it was a cute send-off. It wasn't like tonally different than the core game. I thought it was a nice figurative. It was very Interstellar, the same way that movie works. You know how Interstellar ends, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was inoffensive. I'll put it that way.
Sure, yeah. I thought it was good, nothing mind-blowing.
Yeah.
The reason I liked the game so much was that in the process of getting to the ending, my mind had been blown like half a dozen times.
Yeah, you're willing to accept
just a totally fine ending.
Quirky mini game where you make your own universe.
Yeah. Seeing all of the other explorers at the end around the campfire, going up to each of them and saying, okay, start playing your instrument now, was kind of touching. The Nomai is there if you had visited him on the Quantum Moon. Apparently, you can reach the end of the game without ever doing the Quantum Moon stuff. He just won't be present there.
Yeah.
So that's cool. The Quantum Moon, my favorite part of the game, is actually just a big tangent.
It is. I also feel like it is the climax of the game. It's the coolest part.
The Ash Twin project was the last thing I did, the last thing I figured out.
It's trippy.
It is trippy. It's funny. I listened to some spoiler casts of other people who played this game. Some of them found the Ash Twin project in like the first 25% of the game.
By accident?
Seemingly by accident.
Okay.
And for me, it was literally the last question mark on my Venn diagram.
Okay, good. You played it the right way. Yeah.
I feel like I played it the canon way, but I feel like the game would still function and work and be cool in just about any order.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild.
Yay. Oh, did you ever notice how in the menu screen, again, if you leave it running, the text of Outer Wilds will scatter and just.
I did not notice that.
I'll show you. And then also, the suns in the distance are exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's like a high number of supernovas occurring around this time. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Also, kind of like the subversion of, we're going to find the eye of the universe and figure out a way to stop the supernova from happening.
Yeah.
And no, you don't.
Oh.
It still happens. You die at the
everyone you know.
Dies.
Yeah.
And there's no save the solar system ending. It's just an inevitability.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very non-video gamey in that way.
Yeah. But despite that, this is a very special video game.
It absolutely is. I feel like a different person for having played it.
Well, good. This is all I could have hoped for. Play this game, people. It's great.
It is a bit of a shame that for such a game that I think would have all near universal appeal, that first-person perspective is kind of difficult to control if you're not accustomed to video games.
Yeah, you need some sea legs.
Yeah. And also, like, there's a bit of a learning curve navigating with your spacecraft.
Yeah.
I grew to like the controls by the end, but at first, I was crashing into things all the time.
You never try Steve Achievement Guy. I said Steve Achievement. Steam Achievement Guy. You never tried to land on the sun station.
I have not tried that. There is an achievement for it.
Did you ever put your thing on autopilot and accidentally fly into the sun?
That did happen once or twice. Yes. Autopilot did me dirty.
There was once I was watching a stream where that same situation happened, flying to Brittle Hollow just as the lantern comes up and glorp. Yeah, you die.
Cool.
Great.
Guess what, Heath? I've got another game I played.
What?
Yeah. I've been busy.
Whoa,
indeed.
Is it as Galaxy Brain as Outer Wilds?
No. But I like it. You're not going to see this one coming, Heath. I returned to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Was there like a DLC that we missed out on?
There is.
The Donkey Kong levels?
I downloaded the Donkey Kong's Adventure DLC for Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. For the uninitiated, we've talked about this game like once in the single-digit episodes.
It's the Mario franchise's turn-based strategy, isometric,
grid-based, XCOM alike.
That has no reason being as good as it is.
Exactly. That's also made by Ubisoft.
Uh-huh.
Because they have the Rabbids franchise. So it's a crossover between the Ubisoft Raving Rabbids and all the Mario Mushroom Kingdom characters you know and love.
Mm-hmm. So there's a massive Donkey Kong-sized Rabbid.
Yes, he's the first boss of the main game.
Fantastic.
And he's pretty fun. And he now gets his own spin-off DLC where he's the main antagonist. And you take on the role of Donkey Kong for the first time. Here's where I am with this DLC. So I loved the main game. I think the DLC is weaker. It's pretty standard stuff. It's a whole campaign, a sizable chunk of content for you for the low price of like $10 or less. One of the main appeals of the main game for me was Every mission you enter, you bring in your squad of 3 characters, and they're all very asymmetric. They have different abilities and stuff.
Sharpshooter, grenadier.
Yeah, and it's kind of quirky having like Luigi fill in the role, the archetype of the sniper. Meanwhile, Mario's a bit of a tank, and like Peach is running healer duty.
Support.
That's amusing. They really constrict you in this DLC. Instead of swapping up your team on the fly to adapt to whatever mission you're entering, you only have 3 characters. So you never get to edit your party.
Okay. It's like the Elite Four. That's a Pokemon reference.
You're saying they're always the same?
Well, you go in with your team and then you got to beat them in succession.
Gotcha. Yeah, you never get to swap anyone out. So there's Donkey Kong, there's Rabbid Peach, and there's Rabid Cranky Kong.
Great.
Those are the 3 people you have to play.
Rabid Cranky Kong.
Yes.
What a celebrated character.
Right. Rabid Peach is just a copy and paste. She's in the main game, so they just copied and pasted her over. Rabid Cranky Kong, he is a new guy, but he's fairly conventional. I'd say the main reason to play the DLC is for Donkey Kong himself, because he's a big departure for the types of tactics you get to employ in this game.
Is he a melee unit?
He's got some cool tricks up his sleeve. The main one is, so for every other character, part of this game is, the part I like is how fun the traversal is in a grid turn-based game. You do cool things like they hop on each other and give each other like a boost, which extends their like range. And
I thought you were going to say the pipes.
The pipes are great. They give you fast traversal methods. You can like slide tackle enemies and do damage to them as you walk past them.
Uh-huh.
Donkey Kong can't do that stuff. Instead, he has a new ability. He just picks up people and throws them. And okay, that sounds like pretty straightforward, right?
Teammates even.
He picks up anything that's not bolted down. So if you want to, it's very versatile in how you can use it. If you want to grab teammates, carry them with Donkey Kong and then chuck them, you can like get them across the map way faster than normal.
Uh-huh.
If you want to grab enemies, throw them into each other, it'll damage them both. Or even just like pick them up and throw them out of cover, so they're now more available to be shot by your other teammates.
Now this is sounding like a Chris game.
Yeah, it goes further than that. You can pick up cover itself. So you can grab the wall the enemy is hunkering down behind, pick it up, carry it with you, chuck it against another enemy, it'll damage him, and suddenly that original guy is now
exposed. Okay.
And it gets even more complex because certain pieces of cover have elemental effects. So there's like a fire piece of cover that if you throw that, it lights guys on fire who it hits. So suddenly Donkey Kong can do way more than just about anyone else. Coupled with, he's got some unconventional weapons, like he's got a banana rang. It's a banana boomerang, but it'll chain and hit multiple enemies, which no one else can really do. And there's also they built in an entire vine swinging system.
I thought you were going to say something like that.
Only Donkey Kong can use. So there's like these platforms that only he can approach, and they suddenly grant him like shortcuts that no one else can use on the grid map, which makes him way more mobile than anyone else. So Donkey Kong's maybe a bit OP in this, but because of the new, interesting, nuanced decisions you can do with his throwing ability, it gives this DLC a different flavor to it. Unfortunately, I think it's weaker in just about every other aspect, that being you can't switch up your team. The boss battles in this DLC are pretty conventional, while the main game, I felt like every boss battle was kind of a highlight of the game, especially the opera singer boss. There is no opera singer boss moment in this DLC. It's all kind of straight up conventional stuff. There's not really new enemies introduced. It's kind of just copy and pasted palette swapped enemies who are now in like tropical attire for Donkey Kong's island setting.
Oh, gotcha.
But Donkey Kong was a fun new puzzle element to the game that I liked. And so for that reason, I recommend this DLC only if you completed the main game, loved it, wanted mostly more of the same.
This is Death of the Outsider, but for Rabbids.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How
as a DLC that is similar to the core game, but only play it after you've...
Okay, yeah. Thanks for referencing that from also like the single-digit episodes.
Yeah.
Cool. So that was my tepid praise for
We're hard to please.
I mean, Outer Wilds pleased me so much.
I neglected to say it during that conversation, but I think Outer Wilds is a masterpiece.
I would echo that sentiment, yes. All right, that's everything I've been playing, Heath.
Sick. All right, now we taking a break?
Now we're taking a break.
All right, when we come back, I have many news to go through.
So much news. See you then.
And we're back.
And we're back with so much news to go over.
Yes.
I count like 7 discrete news stories we need to hit on.
Why? Because I texted you 7 distinct news stories.
That
and
could
the
be.
first one has like 6 within them.
Yeah, so clearly we need to get started here. Okay. So last week, Microsoft put on the first-party Xbox Series X showcase.
And what an improvement it was.
It really was compared to the third-party one they did in May, which I am still kind of baffled they bothered with it all. It seemed really cobbled together. This seemed way more professional. So I was happy to see that improvement. Just really high level, first of all. I was kind of expecting to see release date and price at this presentation. What about you, Heath?
For the console itself?
For the console itself. No?
I mean, under normal circumstances, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, under normal circumstances, I think we would have known months ago.
I mean, geez. Yeah, maybe.
I'm banking on mid-November these things come out, which puts us at we're talking
like
August,
3 or 4
September,
months.
October, November. We're talking with this thing is 3.5 months out. They need to start accepting pre-orders pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we still don't know the release date for either of the PS5 or Xbox Series X or the price. It feels like the ultimate staring contest. Neither of them want to be the first to spill the beans.
What did we say? PlayStation 5 is going to be $500?
Yeah.
The disc version? Yeah.
One of them will be $500.
Okay.
Best case scenario, the disc drive one will be $500. Worst case scenario, the cheaper one is $500. But that remains to be seen.
We're not here to talk about Sony.
Let's talk about Xbox. To no one's surprise, they opened with Halo Infinite.
How many Halo rings are there? Is this a prequel of a prequel?
You know, I haven't fully finished watching Polygon's video about
everything you need to know before Halo Infinite.
Yeah, what's his name? Brian David Gilbert. He read every Halo novel over the course of a year. I'm halfway through that video. I don't know how many Halo rings there are yet, Heath. I aim to answer that question eventually, but I am a Halo fan. I have played every mainline Halo up to this point.
Mm-hmm. And you're getting nostalgia when you're watching this trailer.
A bit, yeah. Here's the thing, though. Halo games, up until now, have released like clockwork every 3 years. Some are even more frequent than 3 years. But the last time we had a mainline Halo game was 2015. This is the longest development cycle a Halo game has ever had, presumably.
And for that reason, this should be blowing our minds.
And for that reason, my hype was pretty high. I was like, okay, what has that larger development cycle bought us this time? And
a facelift.
And seemingly, it hasn't bought us a whole lot. If you've played a Halo game in the past 2 decades, you kind of know what this gameplay showcase looked like. It looked like a Halo campaign mission. Now, at one point, they did open up a map of the level, because apparently Halo Infinite is borderline an open world game, which would be new for Halo. It remains to be seen how that really impacts the experience.
It'll probably be great because there's so many fun vehicles to drive.
Yeah, it could totally be a great premise. What they showed seemed like a pretty linear mission. So I guess they haven't fully demonstrated that proof of concept just yet. They did have a grappling hook in Halo now. Mm-hmm. That's a new addition. Brutes are back. We haven't seen brute enemies since Halo 3, I think.
Are you a fan of Craig?
Meet Craig. Halo Infinite's flat graphics are already a meme.
Did you watch the donkey video? This guy is all over the place now.
I've seen this brute's face plastered on the internet. Oh, there he is in Majora's Mask. There's Joe Rogan. Yeah. I was going to say Dave Rubin for some reason.
That brute is a fresh meme.
Yeah, so even if it's just another Halo game, I'm ready to play it, but a little disappointed that it's been so long. I was expecting there to be more tangible reason why this one is different. That said, they definitely held things back. We didn't hear anything about a multiplayer. We didn't hear anything about a potential battle royale mode.
They showed the villain.
It's
like Orc Thanos.
Yeah. I think he might be tie-in to like Halo Wars too.
Yes, he is.
Okay, cool. They also said they're pitching Halo Infinite as a platform this time. So they've said
like a Destiny platform?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They suspect Halo Infinite will not have a sequel for quite some time.
Oh.
So I guess that means Halo Infinite's going to be more of a live service game than Halo has ever been before. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think it could work, but live service games aren't typically my thing.
Yeah, it'll live for the life of the console.
Could be, yeah. Which would be, I would say it's weird that the Xbox Series X is only going to get one Halo game, but the Xbox One only got one mainline Halo game as well.
That's all I had to say about Halo. I'll take the baton, if you don't mind, and talk about Grounded.
Oh, okay.
So Grounded was that cheap-looking crafting game where you're one of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids characters.
I believe I saw my brother playing this game.
No, oh, yeah, because it's already available.
It's already available in early access.
Yeah, okay.
And it's also surprisingly that this game, but that looks like a survival crafting-like game, is coming from Obsidian Entertainment.
Right, because do you remember the joke that they did in the trailer?
Yeah.
I thought it was so noteworthy.
Are you talking about if you're waiting for the biggest game of the year, buy Cyberpunk? But if you want the smallest, try Grounded.
Tipping their hat to CD Projekt, I loved it.
That was pretty good. That was self-aware.
Cool to hear that you can already play it. Medium, here was, this is Titanfall 2's successor.
I mean, we kind of maybe saw Ratchet and Clank pulling the same kind of gimmick. The fact that two versions of the level are loaded on top of each other. Yeah. So you can flawlessly switch back between them.
Sorry, the game was called The Medium. I kind of mumbled through that.
Right, The Medium. It is coming later this year. It looks to be like a psychological horror game. Mm-hmm. It actually, the trailer, I thought looked pretty intriguing. I don't know about you. What you thought, Heath?
It looked all right.
Okay.
Horror, you know.
Yeah. I just love the flipping back and forth mechanic between levels so much that I think that boosted my impression.
It's still fresh as a daisy.
Yeah.
Here's what's not fresh as a daisy. The Fable franchise in its entirety. How many Fable games did you play?
0.
Right, and this was their, send-off.
Yeah, this was what ended the show.
Mm-hmm.
A cinematic teaser for the fact that they are bringing the Fable franchise back, this kind of very British role-playing fantasy series.
It's very Victorian monarchy. You start as a peasant kind of thing.
Yes, previously created by Lionhead Studio.
Peter Molyneux's not touching it?
As far as I know, Peter Molyneux does not have his fingerprints on this one.
Okay.
This is being made by Playground. This has been rumored for a while, actually.
Okay.
Playground makes the Forza Horizon games.
Oh my God.
So they're a first-party studio of Microsoft's now. They make racing games.
Uh-huh.
And
this is they're pulling an Obsidian.
It's not in their wheelhouse, get it? Because they make racing games. But to be fair, the Forza Horizon games are racing games set in open worlds. So maybe that means Fable's going open world.
Okay. Sprawling, horse-drawn something.
Could be.
I have to say, I've beaten Fable 2 and Fable 3 multiple times.
You have?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So you're the Fable expert
Fable
here.
2 is one of the first few games I played on the 360, and then I bought Fable 3 hoping it would be like the next step. Both of them are so linear and very mystical, very familial, I would say.
Okay.
Sort of like how Assassin's Creed Odyssey, everybody's like brother, sister.
Is this a franchise you're eager to see return?
No.
Oh. And do you any concrete reasons why?
Just because I imagine it's still going to be this browbeaten Victorian pick between these two cosmetic choices very black and white morality decisions.
Gotcha.
The game will open up and let you choose whatever kind of wife you want, or whether you get early game money through blacksmithing or barding. I think Fable 3 should have been the last Fable game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I haven't played them. They don't seem that appealing to me. They seem kind of shallow, but enough time has passed. This is in the hands of a different developer. Maybe it'll be like a bigger reboot than we might be imagining. It seems far off, though, just because they showed a very short teaser, and that was about it.
Yeah. Anyway, the other game I wanted to mention honorably is As Dusk Falls, Chris.
Okay.
This is just a regular indie game, or is it like a student game even? It's a debut game for...
Headed up by ex-Quantic Dream lead game designer Carolyn Marshall.
This is news to me. So David Cage's protege has come up with this super... You saw the trailer of this, right?
Yes, I am familiar.
What a super cool art style.
It is, yeah.
I will try to explain it. It is like a 3D but 2D painterly slideshow.
Yeah, 2D, but it has many layers.
It's got parallax.
Okay.
I like parallax.
Gotcha.
So As Dusk Falls, apparently it's from Caroline from David Cage's loins. We'll see how she...
That sounds dirty.
She does, yes. I am. That's the game I was most interested in from the showcase.
And it seems like the description says it's about two families locked in turmoil. It seems kind of like social commentary-esque, perhaps.
Oh, sure. Yeah. All David Cage games are.
Gotcha. But this one seems like it's in a grounded setting instead of androids.
We can fingers crossed though.
Okay, that's the twist.
Yeah.
We already mentioned Obsidian once, but they had another game reveal, Avowed, which it looks also very far out. It is seemingly a big RPG, which is Obsidian's bread and butter. Seemingly it's first person. It's very fantasy-esque, almost looking Elder Scrolls-y.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What wasn't clear in the announcement trailer I watched was that it's actually set within the world of the Pillars of Eternity universe.
Which is good news?
Which, yeah, I mean, I think it's good news.
For Pillars fans.
For Pillars fans, for sure. And from what I've heard, that is a very well-developed world to set an RPG in.
Yeah.
That is an isometric game. So the fact that this seems much higher budget, first person, first of all, which is a big departure, that seems interesting.
Feels like something they've wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think couldn't afford, maybe.
I think they even led into the trailer with an exec from Microsoft saying, when we acquired Obsidian, this is the game they pitched us as being the one they had always wanted to make.
Cool. Okay.
So that, I mean, currently it's all just like feel-good sentences about the game, but it gives me some level of faith that this could be something special.
Exciting.
Oh, Psychonauts 2 seemed charming.
Jack Black sung a song.
He did.
That's all there was to it.
Rare is making another game. We kind of glossed over that.
Oh, yeah. Life is Strange.
No. Forget that. Scroll up. Rare, the beloved N64 developer who Microsoft acquired way back when. They're making Everwild, which is highly artistic.
Very, yeah.
Maybe evokes feelings of Breath of the Wild because it's a very grounded in nature kind of game. There's like some healing animals mechanics going on.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of game it is. I really can't picture what the gameplay loop is going to be like, but it's there. I liked the tone they put on display.
Cool.
Overall, Heath, were your expectations met, superseded, or were they fallen short of after
my
this
expectations were superseded. I thought they were going to lag behind Sony. I thought that the current lineup was going to be Sony, Nintendo, Xbox. But now it sounds like Xbox has enough to satiate, enough to warrant a new console lineup.
Okay. Interesting.
Are you blown away by this?
I'm on the edge between met expectations and underwhelmed.
Okay.
Just because a lot of what was shown was cinematic trailers, not a whole lot of gameplay. The Halo thing seemed more of a let's just show a little bit.
Paint
I
by
thought
numbers.
it was going to be a big blowout, which it was not. Walking away from it, I think it's clear that Microsoft and Sony have two very different philosophies for launching these consoles. Watching Sony's presentation, I felt like Sony was grabbing me by the shirt and saying, these are the reasons you need to buy a PlayStation 5. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It felt like Phil Spencer grabbing me for Microsoft. And he's saying, okay, we're making this Xbox Series X console. You can buy it or not. It's cool, because a lot of the games they showed are launching on Xbox One, and every single one of them is launching on PC. So as someone who primarily plays on PC, I think there's literally not a reason to buy an Xbox Series X, but I think Microsoft is cool with that because I'm going to be playing their games anyway. It's just on a PC instead.
Ooh, okay, because Donkey said that Xbox was going to pull a Sega and make software. But that was clearly a joke, right? Because this is on the eve of their console launch.
I see what he's getting at there. It felt like Sony's presentation was selling me on a console. The Microsoft's presentation was selling me on their services. Because they made it very clear every single game shown is available for free on Game Pass, which is an exceptional value. And you can subscribe to Game Pass whether you have an Xbox, whether you have a PC. I suspect before this new generation concludes, we will see Game Pass on more platforms as well. Or if not Game Pass, at least Microsoft first-party games.
Okay.
And it feels like Microsoft is they're casting as wide a net as possible.
Okay.
They've decided, hey, Sony has outsold us on physical hardware console sales every generation we've competed with them. Let's just sell our software everywhere. And I think that's not necessarily a bad
Throwing
strategy.
in the towel.
It's just that they're fighting a different war now.
Okay.
And ultimately, when these two consoles launch this fall, I'm not going to pick up either of them. However, Microsoft is going to get some of my money because I'll be buying their games on PC. So even though I think Sony's maybe their software lineup slightly more appeals to me, and there's definitely some subjectivity that goes into that, I think Microsoft kind of wins because they're the ones who are going to get some of my money this fall. If I had to get one console or the other, I would get a PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
But currently, with just the fall's lineup, there is not sufficient reason to get either console. I'm going to have to wait.
Okay.
So what may end up happening is I never buy an Xbox Series X. I eventually get a PlayStation 5. But until then, Sony's going to have to wait to get my money. Microsoft will be collecting my check the whole time as I buy their games
on an occasional basis,
on PC. So they've really diverged, and I think it's a good idea to diverge because competing when you're selling two boxes which do almost exactly the same thing is kind of a scary prospect.
Okay. Now, Chris.
Yes.
When you're writing those checks, are you writing $70 or $60?
Are you setting me up with the transition to the next story?
We got the smoothest segues in the West,
this
folks.
This is why you get paid the big bucks, Heath.
Man, I wish this made money.
So, this is the trilogy. This is the third time in a row we're talking about video game prices because
the video game buyer's guide saga continues.
Last week, we were speculating how it seems like next-generation games are going to cost $70 because publisher 2K announced their basketball game, NBA 2K, is going to cost $70.
And we wiped our hands with that news, thinking the whole industry would follow suit, with the exception of, like, Nintendo.
It seemed like a safe assumption.
But then Ubisoft,
Yves Guillemot, the CEO, he said, okay, this holiday season, Ubisoft were launching some new games, Watch Dogs Legion, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We're going to make our games $60, at least for this holiday season. And that is not the case for 2K. It is the case for Ubisoft. Suddenly, the waters just got a lot more muddy, Heath. It seems like prices are going to be set on a publisher-by-publisher basis.
Which is great news for Valhalla. I'm delighted to hear this.
Just because that game appeals to you and you want the lower price? Why are you delighted?
Yeah, for those two reasons.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is a consumer-friendly move being made by Ubisoft. I wonder how ubiquitous it will be. Because we don't know what Activision's going to do, or EA is going to do, or the console manufacturers, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, don't know what they're doing.
If I was a betting man, I would say that Ubisoft's the pariah.
Pariah?
Yeah, they're alone in this price, because it's all reactionary. Because I think Ubisoft is going to be one of very few who remain at 60.
Gotcha. This indicates to me that publishers they're not getting this top-down directive dictating to them, you must be $70 now. They have some free agency in choosing prices. I wonder, does that mean, can Bethesda say our games are $80 now?
Our games are 61. Oh, wait, no, Bethesda would cash grab. Yeah, they'll make it 80.
I wonder if we are seeing the ubiquity of uniform video game prices disappear, or is this going to be a very short phenomenon? When we hit holiday season 2021, will everyone have finally caught up to $70 and now that's...
Likely.
I agree. I think it's likely. I suspect by summertime next year, everyone will be on board with $70. I think this is just a symptom of the transition period. This is a clean way for, we talked about smart delivery on Xbox, how Assassin's Creed Valhalla was one of the games touting it, that it would give you that free update from Xbox One to Xbox Series X. Having all Ubisoft games just be $60 is a clean way for them to avoid that problem.
Yeah.
Where people could just buy the cheaper game and have it run on their new console. They
circumvented that do-si-do of $10.
Right. I wonder how much of a factor that played into this. Hard to say. So things got confusing with video game prices, and that's all the update we have for you at this time.
Here's a game that's not being sold for $70 or $60 because it's not getting made. I'm talking about Gamer Girl.
I'm hyped for this story, Heath.
So, publisher pulls out of controversial Gamer Girl game trailer, or excuse me, they pulled the trailer for Gamer Girl game off of YouTube following backlash.
I think it was like Sony's official YouTube channel that uploaded it and then promptly took it down.
Backtrack instantly.
Mirrors still exist though, so you can watch this if you want to.
Chris, this game was supposed to be an upcoming live-action game in which you play as essentially a Twitch moderator.
Live action meaning what, Heath?
Meaning, like, the character you're watching is this actress who's playing Abby Cake 99, and you, as the chivalrous white knight moderator, are giving her advice as to whether or not she should go, text this guy, go into this haunted mansion. Would it be good for the brand? And it seems like, and the joke that was passed around is that it's a simp simulator.
I have heard that, yes.
Yeah. And the reason the trailer got taken down is because like female streamers were like, what is this gamification of the anxiety-inducing lifestyle that I have to live? Because I can't just live as a professional streamer. I have to dodge and weave creeps on the internet.
Yes.
Because my likeness is out there.
Yeah.
And this game seems... I'm going to read a quote from the developers that said something like, online abuse is real and still happening every day. Gamer Girl seeks to raise awareness of this issue, much in the way that like Detroit Become Human was supposed to raise awareness of the struggle of people of color.
I mean, in Detroit Become Human, there's also allusions to like the Holocaust.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think what you're pointing out how like the game raising awareness for a real social issue, doing it in this hokey way.
Very poorly and...
kind of tone deaf.
Yeah, much in the way of David Cage of old. And Chris, you're asking me, is there a game that gamifies the experience of being a moderator for a broadcast? It does it in a tasteful way?
Is there?
Enter Not for Broadcast. This is an indie game in which you play as a TV network broadcast operator. You got to switch between different cameras, and there's this overarching corporate push for you to like censor certain people that might not go along with the message. And let's say that there are like some protesters that come on camera B, cut to camera C. And
this sounds paper-pleasian.
Yes, very good. So up at the top of the screen, you can see like viewership, and you're supposed to like keep the broadcast going. And this is such a tasteful way. You could imagine Papers, Please, somebody doing a really poor job of like making a mockery of different ethnicities. But Papers, Please doesn't do that. It does a great job of the Border Patrol experience.
Right.
This is what Gamer Girl was trying to do. So that's, they tried.
My favorite part about the Gamer Girl video game, which I differ on you, Heath, I think this game is going to come out. The trailer had like the launch date and just like a couple months away.
Okay.
So I think the game's done. I think they're going to ship it.
But just maybe like with a whimper?
Possibly.
Okay.
My favorite thing about it though is, okay, so we have video games and they let you digitally simulate things we can do in real life, be it sports or racing or shooting. And there's kind of that layer of abstraction that lets you recreate that digitally. Then we introduced this second layer of abstraction. You no longer have to play the video games yourself. You can tune in on platforms like Twitch and YouTube and watch a streamer
like I did
run through video games and interact with them that way. And now Gamer Girl, the game, comes along, introducing this third layer of abstraction. You no longer have to interact with the stream yourself. You can play the game digitally simulating the experience of tuning into a video game stream that is itself simulating it's a real-world event with a video game, a digital recreation. And when Gamer Girl releases, streamers are going to eat this up. Streamers are going to stream Gamer Girl, introducing a fourth layer of abstraction where you no longer have to actually play the game that recreates the streaming experience, which recreates playing a video game, which recreates reality. You now stream it. And I'm worried, Heath, if we go one more layer deep, I think
we'll rip open.
It'll be like it will hit infinite recursion and the fabric of reality itself will end. Much like Outer Worlds did. Outer Wilds. Yeah. I messed up.
That's fine. I knew what you meant. That's funny, Chris. You're absolutely right. Streamers would play this game just as a fun house mirror of what their lives are like.
So
this is the Thronebreaker card game of a card game of a card game I was hoping for.
Gamer Girl, the video game, might be the most meta thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that and Game Dev Tycoon.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd be happy to see it because I like much in the way that I watched David Cage's earlier games like a trash fire. This game is that burns that much brighter. I'll put it that way. Next up, this is really quick. This is from my Twitter. Okay, we'll do Call of Duty.
What is our fourth news story, Heath?
The fourth news story is that Doritos may have accidentally leaked the promotional material for the next Black Ops game because we've been in the dark on account of the global situation, but apparently this professional looking unlocked XP decal on their Doritos bags suggests that the next Black Ops game is going to be it's like a reboot of Black Ops 1, which I'm not looking forward to. I feel like you got to do something like the fact that it's called Black Ops Cold War is so stupid.
Yeah.
It's like if they did Harry Potter Hogwarts. Like it's just hat on a hat, you know what I'm trying to say? The franchise, yeah. Because
the Black Ops sub-franchise of Call of Duty already deals with the Cold War.
With the exception of Black Ops 3 and 4, which go future.
Okay.
But the fact that you friggin' jump the shark with your naming convention that Black Ops means anything.
Right.
Black Ops just means like not modern warfare is embarrassing.
So this is kind of noteworthy because this is the latest in the calendar year we've ever been without knowing what this year's Call of Duty is going to be.
Call of Duty games have been announced shortly after E3?
No.
Like
they get announced
E3?
in the spring.
Really?
Traditionally.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
I'm thinking like May timeframe.
Okay. I feel like we are just beating an old horse. What's the phrase?
Beating a dead horse.
Beating a dead horse. Because this is a decade-old story arc that should have wrapped up after 3.
You're expecting Call of Duty to wrap up story arcs?
I mean...
They certainly wrapped up Call of Duty Ghosts.
Yeah, they did. Oh my gosh. Well, here's the story is that it was supposed to be Sledgehammer Games' turn come out with the installment.
I've lost track of which developer's turn it is.
Right. After Infinity Ward was going to be Sledgehammer, and then they looked at what Sledgehammer had, and it was like, put that back in the oven. It's not done yet. Here, Treyarch, you're going to run point, and everybody runs support. And so that's how this is getting made. But I have low hopes.
Gotcha. I mean, until this leak, which Call of Duty leaking through Doritos is like such a gamer thing. Until this leak, I was starting to wonder, are we not getting a Call of Duty this year? Which it would boggle the mind.
Unfathomable.
When was the last calendar year that we did not have a Call of Duty game release?
Like, I was prepubescent?
I might have been a fetus.
So that's, okay. That's Call of Duty. Moving on to, this is just promotional material and artwork on a Doritos bag. But it looks far better than the artwork that's appearing on the new FIFA cover. Take a look at this, Chris. What was the other box art I was ridiculing? Like Spider-Man Far From Home. It looked like a terrible yearbook cover, if you can recall. Yeah.
This was a movie poster.
So FIFA 21 is doing this. They're taking photos of whichever player this is. And maybe it's just because it's like the champion edition. It might be like a special edition.
Oh, that could be.
But it's just squares on a white background. And there have been no shortage of people being like, I can do that just as well. There's this one for Mario Odyssey 2.
Yeah.
So FIFA, this is the not a champion edition. So look, It's like the same.
It's the same aesthetic.
It's just photos. It's collage.
I am intrigued by the fact that both editions include a photo of this athlete doing like the hands in the armpit gesture pose, which I don't think is like that flattering of a pose. It just he seems uncertain of himself. Why are they including this photo on the championship edition? It's the main photo, like the front and center one.
Maybe that's
just brushing his armpits.
Maybe that's his dab as much as that was Cam Newton's. You know, dabbing has a lot of elbow action, so this is just a double dab. This is just...
This position reminds me of, like, junior high prom and the kids at the perimeter of the dance floor, like, observing and waiting to maybe make a move, but being unsure. Lying in wait.
Unsure of what to do with their hands.
Yes. I wouldn't put that on the cover of my video game.
No, neither would you. This Abercrombie and Fitch advertisement.
They even use like the correct Abercrombie and Fitch color filter.
Yeah, the grayscale. Awful. So FIFA 21 is notable for that reason. Moving on.
What's next? What's what number news story is this, Heath?
Well, I always have news within news. Do you want to talk about Game Maker's Toolkit?
Not a lot, but I know you do, so we can do it.
This was the game jam of 2020. The theme was out of control, and he highlighted some of the best ones. I thought some that were really cool were ones where you can actually take the controls off of the would-be arcade cabinet and use them in-game. What I mean by that is like it's a side-scrolling platformer and there's a gap that you have to cross. Rather than jumping it because it's too far, you can use the space bar, which is on the screen, and place it over the gap.
Okay.
And as long as it's in the level, you can no longer jump.
Gotcha.
But you can use it to traverse, and that I thought was like a really cool.
So the controls become part of the environment, but then you lose access to said controls.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That was cool. I also liked Laser Guy.
Laser Guy.
So you are a Cyclops-looking guy who sneezes in his office space. And it's just a 2D platformer. It's overhead view, and you have a unrelenting laser coming out of your face, and it's up to you to traverse your office without incinerating your coworkers. And it's so creative because it's sort of like a reverse stealth game where you have the one with the vision cone.
Yeah.
And you have to make appropriate use of these destructible elements to avoid burning your friends. And look, there's like metal cabinets have greater durability, and it's such a cool, like nothing you've ever seen.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I like your vision cone stealth game analogy because it is just like that.
It was his analogy.
Okay.
Here's another game that's sort of like that. Shooty Balls.
What a title.
Shooty Balls is it's a Geometry Wars clone, essentially.
Okay.
And there's this green thing that's bouncing around. And you don't control the thing that's bouncing around. You control just like a little shooty thing. In a bullet hell type thing.
A little ship. Yeah.
And you're blowing up these red dots. And the reason you're blowing up the red dots is because there is a ticking timer at the top. And once that depletes, you become the boss and do this bullet hell barrage that is friendly fire to that green bouncing friendly thing.
Oh.
And at which point you then have to like try to avoid your projectiles from hitting it, because as soon as that bouncing projectile depletes its health, it's game over. So it's a cool thing, again, like Laser Guy, where you are the destructive force. And you have to figure out a way of minimizing damage.
Laser Guy is to stealth games as Shooty Balls is to bullet hell games.
Isn't that super cool how they flip it on its head?
I am impressed by this. I like it.
So Game Maker's Toolkit.
And people threw this together in 48 hours.
Yes.
Every one of these.
Yeah.
Which is so impressive.
Yeah, there's tons of these. So that was Game Maker's Toolkit.
Final news story, Heath.
Chris, you know that's not going to be the final news story.
What?
Henry Cavill builds a PC live stream.
That's ancient history.
Well, yeah, because we've had to keep delaying this.
Ignore the fact that I've watched the live stream 3 times.
The aging... Wait, do you want to do... Well, first let's do... Yakuza has a karaoke minigame.
It sure does.
Which has been that's ancient history, right?
Yeah.
But there has been a trend in deepfakes where people have been making public figures sing Baka Mitai. Do you recognize any of these? Yeah, you'll recognize him. So it's all these public figures, and this one is the most verbose. You'll notice Craig from the Xbox Showcase. There's Linus Tech Tips. That's Epstein, and his looks really good. So that's all well and fun. Oh my god, yeah, it just keeps going, Chris.
They get more and more complex.
Yeah, to the point where...
Oh my gosh!
Sing it with me, everybody. Sugite, Sugite. Justin's looks great. Yeah.
You've taken our friend group and created deep fakes of us.
Yeah.
Janice looks angry.
Well, his was like a profile looking thing. Yeah.
I think Nate and I look the most authentic.
Maybe, yeah.
How much work did that take?
That's what I was doing. That's why I was scrambling. So yeah, I'll post that to my Twitter. Anyone who's listening, of Chris doing the Yakuza karaoke Baka Mitai.
You put a lot of effort into, like, what is this, a 2-minute segment?
Yeah, because it was so funny watching all of these, like Epstein. Anyway, that was the deep fakes. And then lastly, and this might not top it, but the aging Pokemon community. Chris, this was a interesting realization for me.
Okay.
Who is the sexiest Pokemon? You know, despite only playing one Pokemon game,
From my experience playing the board game Wavelength, I assume it's Gardevoir.
Right. Do you know why that is?
She's hot.
She's humanoid looking. The reason Gardevoir is the sexiest Pokemon by the community's consensus is because that's how long it took for Gen 1ers to reach sexual maturity.
Gen 1ers being people who played the first generation of Pokemon games?
People who were kids that played the first generation Pokemon games only reached adolescence at Gen 3. So that's why they took to this very womanly looking Pokemon in a attractive way.
You're saying all of this as if it's like common knowledge.
This is in agreement.
This is known.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a sort of interesting demography. I don't know.
This is a relatively new revelation for me.
Well, yeah, because I'm the one telling it to you. Anyway, similar to that, Gen 5ers are reaching an age in which they are capable of creating really dank memes. So,
all right,
people who were children when Gen 5 came out in like 2013 or what have you, the black and white games, they have reached a level of maturity that has spurred a number of videos celebrating Generation 5's music. This one's called Gen 5 Music Gives Me Anxiety. Right? And there's a million of these, Chris, that are all the same. Yeah, and then what's the other one where it's me and the boys joined Team Plasma.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
So when was Gen 5 in released? What time period are we talking about here?
2010 to 2013.
Okay.
So in that 7 years, the children who grew up with those games are now coming strong with these.
Mind if I put on some music?
I do not.
Right.
I do not.
I got this new
Neo Team Plasma. Neo Team Plasma.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
Oh, dude, you're gonna love it.
Oh, cool. Cool, man.
Yeah. Right? It's the same.
So my question for you, Heath.
Uh-huh.
Was there a similar meme renaissance for Gen 4 that happened earlier and Gen 3 before that?
I don't think so. I think that those games... I mean, there's like one clip for Gen 3 music. One clip of SpongeBob where Squidward is like, hey guys, maybe if we just play loud, people will think we're good. And a 1, and a 2, and then it plays like a really loud horn song from a random route in Pokemon Ruby where it's like da 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 da. Yeah. But that's the only memery for those earlier gens. This Gen 5 one, it must have been like, the music has always been good, but it's only come to this point that we're getting this renaissance because of the aging community that played those in their youth.
I see.
That's why it's happening now. And I just thought that was like so interesting. Did you ever read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
I have, yes.
You know how the first chapter is like, yo, kids born in January, February, hockey stars.
Yeah.
If you're born November, December, you're a chump. You're never going to make it to the NHL. This is the same sort of thing. Like when you were born dictates what these things happen.
Right.
So
your own perspective.
You know what's happening next is we're going to get even danker things from the most recent generations once the infants who grew up with them reach the age when dank things are just come to your head.
Gotcha. Look forward to that in about 7 years.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's all the news I have.
That was a lot of news.
There was one thing I wanted to say about Ghost of Tsushima that was pretty cool.
Okay.
how they don't use waypoints because you've seen gameplay.
Yes.
There's no HUD.
Jason Schreier was telling me that, because I listen to his podcast sometimes, this is the OG Assassin's Creed formula Assassin's Creed game you would want to play.
Really?
Yes, because there's
stealth.
There's stealth. There's the trailing missions that will automatically fail if you deviate a little bit. The stuff you love.
Yeah, it's rigid gameplay. Yeah, design. Great. But what I was saying was that there's no HUD, so all of your missions, which are across the open world, you have to have some waypoint system. It's literally the wind.
Yeah.
So you pick a point on your map, and then you stroke across the PlayStation controller on that little touchpad.
Which hardly ever gets used. So
Right,
thank goodness for that.
And the wind will just blow lotus petals in a way that's like cool and not hokey, like in Red Dead, where like this dirt road will glow or, what have you. Like a giant arrow, like in Saints Row, will point you in the right way.
Yeah. So does the direction of your touchpad swiping matter? Or is it just do a swipe, the wind will guide you?
I think it's, do a swipe. It doesn't matter.
Okay, that's still cool though.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how this is an old example.
diegetic way of representing direction.
How like this is an old example, but how Dead Space doesn't have a health bar. Instead, the color of your suit glows different colors depending on how
it's like this
damaged you
spinal
are.
column.
Yeah. So baking in traditionally HUD elements into the very visual design of the game is underrated.
Yeah, do it more.
Do it more. Very good. All right, now that's the end of the news.
Yeah, now I'll let you go.
All right. I'm going to do some stretches, and when we return, it'll be time for, rapid fire emails and
What?
part 2 of our controversial gaming opinions. We'll see you then. And we're back. Heath, we've had a beefy episode so far. I'm going to help alleviate that situation. We're going to blitz through some emails really quick. Thankfully, none of these require too much time to address.
While you queue them up, I'll just say, if anybody wants to send us emails, they need only send it to MobiusTubesPodcast@gmail.com. I've been in correspondence with one such fan in the YouTube comments, if you can believe that. They were like, are these re-uploads or new episodes? And I was like, they're re-uploads. Blame Chris. And they were happy to relive some of the older episodes, knowing what they know now. But we'd love to hear from you guys in email form. That was MobiusTubesPodcast@gmail.com.
And we read every single one, which will become apparent when you hear some of these. Okay, I'll address these in chronological order.
Are they like haikus?
All right. Hello, Chris. And only Chris.
Wow.
At timestamp 14 minutes 25 seconds of the previous episode, Chris says, I'm an engineer by trade. This is 100% wrong. Chris is a computer science major, not an engineer.
That's a type of engineer.
As an actual engineer representing the thousands of engineers listening to your podcast, I am insulted that you would taint the name of engineers everywhere. Thank you only to Heath, Justin, the electrical engineering by trade.
Wow.
Hashtag Team Heath.
Thank you, Justin. I am proud to be the favorite host for all of our electrical engineer listeners.
All right, Justin, I don't think you've written to me in good faith that I can perhaps change your opinion on this topic, but I will just say that when I report to work, my job title is software engineer, and when I went to school, I was lumped in, I reported to the School of Engineering. So I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what to call myself. I'm definitely not a scientist. I don't employ the scientific method at work or use hypotheses. I pretty much build stuff, which I assume is what you do as a fellow engineer. Yeah, I'm going to call you a fellow engineer. So this has been the engineering hour. Moving on. All right, this one's subject line is retiring headline dining follow-up. This is from the Hippo. Hello, Chris and Heath. I appreciate you guys for taking my feedback appropriately. I now have all this extra money, and I will be buying a copy of Outer Wilds. Thanks again, one satisfied hippo. Hashtag Team Nathan, where the f*** are your emails? So-called #1 fan. Calling out Nathan.
Well, first of all, we'll address that, but the way that he phrased it, in which thank you for honoring my feedback, as a reward to you, I will buy Outer Wilds. He was looming it over our heads. So I don't know how to feel about that.
It's really not a reward to us. It's a reward to you because you get to play Outer Wilds now.
Yeah, congratulations, listener. No pressure, people. If you don't I don't write into any email. I'm gonna cut that.
I have very seldom written into podcasts, and they have never been answered.
Oh.
So I think we provide a great service by reading them all.
Yeah, that's why it's so much fun to write into this. So wait, do we have any emails from Nate?
We do. Moving on with the blitz of emails.
Yeah.
So Nate, in a very uncharacteristic move, sent us 4 emails, all of which are pretty short.
Okay.
First, Nate asks, if you could have a bird in your freezer, what kind of bird would it be? Thanks, Nathan. Any answers to this question, Heath?
Wait, you're asking me?
If you could have a bird in your freezer, what kind would it be?
Do I...
Do we clarify what's going on here?
I mean, it'll be chicken or turkey in the most normal sense.
No indigo buntings?
No indigo buntings. This is unlistenable.
All right. We'll just end it there.
No, I want more.
All right. Next Nate email doesn't really need to be addressed. He just says, hello. First of all, how are you? How are you, Heath?
We're good.
Yeah, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, this is a fun episode.
Third Nate email is, second of all, how dare you? I'm not sure what he's getting at there.
This is like some Mad Libs, ARG email correspondence.
I'm starting to get concerned. I think Nate's email address might be compromised. These are not up to Nate's usual standards.
He said, how dare you? And to that I say, it wasn't my fault. And what's the next one?
Last one is, third of all, do you have the Kung flu?
What?
I don't know what the Kung flu is.
Is that a China virus joke?
Oh, it must be.
Oh, okay. No. I mean, granted I opened with my vacation, but Bailey got a test that came back negative. So the fact that we were side by side the whole time makes me think that I don't have.
That bodes well.
Yeah.
Can't be sure, but.
Thank you for looking out for our well-being, Nate. But also, how dare you call it such a rudimentary colloquialism?
All right, that was this week's email section.
Can we get some serious emails?
Yeah, that was...
I'm calling out people who like listening but don't write in, just to spare us the indignity.
We're kind of being made fun of here.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of our promise, our good faith promise to read every email.
Hopefully we can get solid emails so we can leave that chaff in the spam folder.
Dang.
That's what I'll say. I love reading emails. It's fun.
All right. So now we're going to transition over into revisiting our topic from last week. This is part 2 of Heath and I's controversial and unpopular gaming opinions.
Ooh, yeah.
And Heath, you said you had some good ones this time.
Yeah, you want some good ones? I mean, the juicier they are depends on how broad they can be, right?
Sure, yeah. The broader they are, the more people you could potentially upset.
Which is the goal.
Which, I guess, depending on how you look at this segment, that could be the goal.
Yeah, and so I tried to come up with some, but they weren't as broad as I would have liked them to be. Here it comes. I'm just going to rapid fire these.
Give me a preview. How many are you going to rapid fire?
I have 2 total. One is like a 3-parter.
Okay.
Here goes. My favorite Smash game is Brawl.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Super Smash Bros.
Brawl is the one, I guess maybe you say the first one is the worst, but other people, Brawl is a contender for the worst.
What?
According to
What?
popular opinion.
No, 64 is the worst.
Okay, yeah. Probably 64 is the worst.
And then it's Wii U.
I thought people like Wii U.
Wii U's fine. It's got Bayonetta.
Yeah, okay, but get back
But
to
it
you.
doesn't have Subspace Emissary. So partly this is because Brawl was the first Smash game I ever played. But I thought that the Subspace Emissary was like, it's what you do when you have a huge roster game from different franchises. You put unlikely pairings together. Samus and Pikachu, Ness and Wario, Diddy Kong and Star Fox, and the hijinks that are there. Subspace Emissary it has never been topped because they don't dare attempt it. Well, they did Spirits or World of Light.
Right.
But that wasn't the same thing.
Yeah, the cutscenes in Subspace Emissary are really cool.
They have aged gracefully.
Even though, unfortunately, they were like rendered in standard definition. So they're a little grainy, but they're really cool to see all those characters lovingly animated together, out of place, worlds combine. I like that about Brawl. I've never played Subspace Emissary.
Oh, it's absolutely worth getting your hands on.
You think
great.
so?
Yeah. Maybe not the gameplay of it, but just going through the story.
That premise.
Yeah, is so classy. I'll say that.
Okay.
So that's my favorite Smash game.
But you can trip in Brawl.
That matters almost little to me.
Just randomly you trip.
Yeah, because they wanted to make it a family-friendly game rather than the competitive.
Melee.
Yeah.
Melee or Ultimate is my favorite. They're very close.
Ultimate is my second favorite.
Okay.
My favorite Sonic game is Shadow the Hedgehog.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean,
this is the second time you've brought Shadow the Hedgehog to talk about.
Yeah, that's just because I haven't played very many Sonic games. I haven't played any 2D Sonic games.
Oh, aren't those like the good ones?
Supposedly. Yeah, this is just to rile up somebody, but I just like Shadow the Hedgehog. It's fun.
My badge of honor is having played 0 Sonic games.
Well, yeah, you're the ultimate winner.
Yeah.
And lastly, my favorite Metal Gear game is Ground Zeroes.
Because that's the only one you've played.
It's the only one I've played.
Surely you've watched some of the others.
Yes.
And do you not hold them in higher regard than Ground Zeroes?
Snake Eater looks antiquated.
Okay.
And Metal Gear Solid 4, albeit has more polish, and it's got, what has it got? Like the microwave hallway, which is like a really important cinematic moment in games. You know what the microwave hallway is?
I do not.
Okay. I won't ruin it for you.
Does it have anything to do with nanobots?
No, that's Metal Gear Revengeance.
That's Revengeance? I thought it was 4. Okay. If you say so.
Oh, actually, there's nanomachines sprinkled throughout. Nanomachines.
Nanomachines, okay.
But no, Metal Gear Ground Zeroes doesn't have like the rocket fist that was in Metal Gear Solid V, nor some of the Fultoning balloon hijinks. But I can't be bothered to dive so deep into Metal Gear. Ground Zeroes was just what I wanted, a stealthy sort of sandbox where I can take my sleepy pistol and just traverse the map and have a good time.
So you're saying Ground Zeroes, which is ostensibly the appetizer game to Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. You, upon finishing your appetizer, you said, oh, no thanks, I'm full. I don't want the full course.
Right. Well, I mean, no, if someone gave me Metal Gear Solid V for free, I would jump at it.
You keep calling it V. People call it 5, right? I mean, yes, there's a V on the cover, but I've never heard someone like say those words.
Interesting.
In your circles you hang out in, they call it Metal Gear Solid V?
I'm just going with what the Wikipedia says.
Okay.
I'll talk to you off mic.
Oh, okay.
No, I can't be so coy. Yeah, there's a reason that's the V.
It's related to the story.
I guess like as much as like the game like Child of Light, if it was like light as in not heavy, as if like a double meaning.
Oh, a double entendre.
Sort
double
of,
meaning?
yeah.
Okay.
It like there's a reason the 5 is a Roman numeral.
Cool.
So I'll just it's Metal Gear Solid V, Street Fighter V. Nah, that's just 5, but they
Gotcha.
illustrated a V.
Yes, I'm familiar with other games that do this. That's cool.
No, so it's what am I trying to say? Very choice words saying that it's my favorite Metal Gear game rather than objectively the best Metal Gear game.
Okay.
Just because it's a consequence of how few of the franchise have experienced. Same goes for Shadow.
So those were your rapid fire.
Yep, that's all I got for that. Do you want to cut in with a unpopular?
Yeah, let's alternate.
Yeah.
That seems fun. Okay. I've got 2 as well. All right, you mentioned, Heath, the broader our opinion can be, the more potential people we can upset.
Yeah.
And I really shot for the moon with both of these. So multiplayer video games, Heath,
Yeah.
I think they do a poor job actually justifying themselves as being multiplayer games. What do I mean by that? So my criticism of online multiplayer video games is that they largely fail to capitalize on the most interesting, dynamic, and sophisticated component of the game, that being the humans actually playing them. And where I'm going with this is, I guess this is my my bias for board games bleeding in here, where when it comes to your ability to interact with the other players in an online game, the methods in which you're able to interact with them have largely been abstracted away. What's left are just a few levers that you can pull that'll have some kind of impact on the other player. Usually shooting them or punching them or just kind of direct damage, which is, if you think about it, of all the different human interactions that could transpire over the course of a game, just dealing direct damage is A, super rudimentary, and B, not very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where, all right, Chris and his elitist attitude about board games bleeds in, where mechanics that are frequently used in a board game, where you have the advantage of players around the table, negotiations can occur.
Yeah.
Whole games are made that are primarily focused around cutting deals, bribing, threatening players, and getting them to trying to persuade them. Or we have the social deduction genre of board games, where you are frequently lying to people's faces, bluffing. Tabletop games like poker, the main appeal is the bluffing. How often do you do any of the cool things that only we can do as humans? How often do those interactions occur in your online video game? I'd argue seldom, if ever. Maybe in like the niche indie game, like Town of Salem is a video game.
Yeah.
That is, you do the lying and the bluffing, but those mechanics, that's just kind of like a port of the board game. When I talk about mechanics video games have introduced that justifying themselves as being a multiplayer game, you have all these people hooked up online, and you don't really capitalize on that. The most egregious examples for me that illustrate this point are some games just, if you don't have the adequate number of players, they just substitute bots in, and you get the same experience. Fortnite, the biggest multiplayer game around, for onboarding players, you enter matches populated with AI-controlled players, and you don't really know the difference. And if that can be the case, you could just all be an illusion and you never be the wiser. How many games of Halo would I have to play against bots before I realize I'm not actually playing with anyone else? I know older Gears of War multiplayer games would also substitute in bots.
Escape from Tarkov has bots by default.
So yeah, when bots can work as a substitute for a human player, does it need to be a multiplayer game? I'd say maybe not. If the core experience remains intact with AI players.
I mean, to that, anyone would say, well, if your opponent is a human being, that makes it more engaging.
Right. And I might ask, you say it makes it more engaging, and I'd agree, but does the more engaging component actually require a human or merely the perception of a human?
Oh, yeah, because Because, you want a human being for their unpredictability, but the unpredictability of a bot is limited just to processing power, maybe.
Sure. If you had a sophisticated enough AI in a multiplayer game and you told someone it was a human player, they'd be none the wiser.
Right. Whereas multiplayer games where you're using like persuasion.
Yeah. When you're engaging on a more human level, which I would argue engaging on a human level would justify it being a multiplayer game for me. We leveled a lot of praise on a multiplayer game last year called Apex Legends because it had an innovative new system called the ping system, which could contextually highlight any object in your environment. And we said, this is great. I never have to talk to another player ever again. And we praised that because we praised the innovation, which means we don't have to talk to other multiplayer players as much, which is, I see it's impressive. I also see it as being kind of sad. Because what's the first thing I do anytime I rarely play a multiplayer game? I mute everyone in the lobby. Why should that be my first default behavior? Or a little while ago, I watched you stream some multiplayer in Dead by Daylight. It's the asymmetrical multiplayer game where you were trying to survive as a team of survivors against a killer. You were playing a survivor. I asked you, when do you talk to your teammates? And you said you never do.
Right. But that's a horror game in which if somebody across the map, because you would need to have some sort of like proximity chat.
Okay, so that's by design.
Right.
Okay, to add to the horror theme.
Otherwise, your survivor over at the power plant could be like, the killer's right next to me.
So I could see the justification for not including that. But in other cases, it does not seem justified. That's my unpopular opinion. Multiplayer video games are essentially single-player experiences and do not properly leverage all the unpredictability and human elements that are provided by playing against real flesh and blood people.
Okay. And this goes from the 250-player battle royale down to the 1v1 card game.
Yeah.
The number of players isn't the issue. It's just how the game sort of like bottlenecks the level of not detail, but to the extent at which you can compete with one another. It's indistinguishable from like a bot, let's say. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. It feels like there's a pane of glass in between me and the other players, and there's a few holes that I can reach through and do things like shoot them. Mm-hmm. And that's about it. That is the only kind of interaction we can have with one another.
You want the exchange you want the transaction between you and the other players to warrant an opponent that's more, I guess, engaging, for lack of a better word, than a bot.
Yeah. The fact that we went to the trouble of online networking all these people together in the same experience, they should be able to interact with one another to a greater extent to justify that. They shouldn't just be filling in for a bot.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's popular.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's it's a very sophisticated statement that most people can agree despite them being fans of multiplayer games.
Okay. Because the logical conclusion for believing that statement for me is not playing many multiplayer games. Because if it's ostensibly a single-player experience, I should just play a single-player game that can more leverage that fact. Since it doesn't have to deal with all these networked players, it can really cater to just you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can cater to just you, but
then the appeal of a multiplayer game is, I'm playing with other people. And then I would say, but not to the extent that it warrants it. And then I don't play multiplayer games.
Oh, man, this is hard to track. How? So, okay, go back to Dead by Daylight.
Okay.
There is no single-player version of that game.
Because
it's an asymmetric cooperative 1v4.
Okay. So the mechanics of the game, they consist of things such as
repairing generators, rescuing survivors, and kiting monsters.
with the killer, do you feel like you're engaging in mind games with him?
Yes, absolutely.
Bluffs and trying to anticipate his route.
Yeah. Is he going to bait me to the pallet or, you know?
And I know at very high levels, many fighting games turn into
footsies,
bluffing matches and rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would warrant a human opponent because you're competing on something on a deeper level than who has the faster trigger finger. Now you're talking about like player mindsets and play styles and adapting. All right.
So you would excuse the multiplayer games that warrant a mind games, right? Or, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Those are free from your scrutiny.
Yes. I think they clear the threshold.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, then I'm with you.
Okay.
I guess so.
Cool.
So like Uno, for example.
Uno is essentially a single player game.
Yeah, might as well be.
It wouldn't even take a complex algorithm to play Uno perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That makes, okay. When you put it that way.
All right. Throwing the ring back over to you, Heath.
Throwing the ring back over me. Wow. Again, I have a very specific opinion that hopefully maybe you can expand just for instant, like provocateur that you are. Goes back to what I was saying about this David Cage. My unpopular opinion is that David Cage games are beautifully made games for dim-witted people.
Wow.
They are, be it the faces in Heavy Rain or the environments in Detroit Become Human, they are very intricate, story-driven, decision-making games that, by fault of their direction, end up being like the decisions and the character motives become so simple that if you are for some reason swept up into Nam and Jaden's investigation or Carla's clue finding or whatever, you are being suckered for a very paint by numbers adventure game. Not adventure game, but you know what I'm trying to... Have at it, Chris.
All right. Beautiful games made for dim-witted people. Just surface level, games made by Quantic Dream have always been kind of pushing the envelope for graphical fidelity. So in that sense, they're definitely like, visually, they're gorgeous games. Those faces are... facial animation work is excellent. Some of the best. And you were talking about more than just skin deep beauty. What constitutes beautifully made to you?
Just both that graphical fidelity and having an intricate presentation.
Mm-hmm.
It is a little superficial, is what I'm trying to say.
I think we're in agreement here. This is a line I've used before, how Detroit Become Human was a game I enjoyed immensely but did not respect.
Yeah, that's what
Maybe this is just the polarization you see on the internet, but when I see people expressing opinions about David Cage's games, most often I hear people say they're dumpster fires, and occasionally I stumble across someone saying it's one of their favorite games ever. I rarely see too much of a middle ground.
Yeah, okay, maybe then I am esoterically paving the way for this middle ground.
Gotcha.
Now that because I've seen them all.
Now, if we could take those people and interview them in person, maybe they have a more nuanced take. But at least when it comes to seeing opinions expressed on the internet, usually it's very polarizing. So your unpopular opinion is, no, man, these games have something to offer, and they're also kind of hokey, but they have redeeming qualities, so they're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, they have jaw-dropping presentation, but if you are not laughing out loud like you did for The Room... Mm-hmm. or other movies that are equally so bad they're good, that's where this franchise belongs.
Gotcha.
That's what I got.
All right, I think I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we're not getting super fired up with each other.
Well, what was I supposed to bring in?
No. This is exactly what you were supposed to. All right, I've got one last controversial opinion, Heath, which I think once again at this table, you and I will not find all that controversial, but statistically, this is controversial.
You mentioned board games earlier.
Yeah.
Can we just go right out and say that Cards Against Humanity is garbage?
100%.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
Okay. We're just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awful. Don't you attend a gathering and somebody's like, let's play Cards Against Humanity, and then you leave that gathering?
That would be my first instinct. Yes.
Yeah, it's astonishing. I would go far as to say that people who go out of their way to not play fun games for the sake of what's familiar, be it Uno, Cards Against Humanity, friggin' Spoons.
Uh-huh.
You know, the like traditional card games, Spoons or whatever.
Yeah,
or Spit, sorry.
Okay, Spit.
Yeah.
People who embrace familiarity over what were you saying?
People who adhere to the mainstream games in spite of the option of playing one of our board games.
Are we talking just tabletop games or all games?
Tabletop.
All right, tabletop games.
Because we like us some... Yeah, there's not a Cards Against Humanity video game equivalent that I would object to so emotionally.
Okay.
But yeah, anyone who's reaching for Cards Against Humanity and Uno when the Resistance or Coup or Codenames are available should die by firing squad.
Damn. I mean, specifically my issue with Cards Against Humanity is there's no room to insert your own creativity into this party game.
Right, Quiplash is great.
Yeah. Anything that you can really have your own input into and have a creative outlet for is great. Cards Against Humanity is you're picking multiple choice jokes that have already been written and then just unveiling them. So everyone's copy of Cards Against Humanity contains the same jokes. And the joke is just
a sorting algorithm.
Yeah, you're just parsing it. And the jokes maybe aren't even that funny. It's just something controversial, something in poor taste. Laugh at it,
yeah.
You sheep.
I feel like the producers of Cards Against Humanity owe it to the gaming community to funnel all that money into a good game and just produce and just make it so affordable and put from the makers of Cards Against Humanity, but inside the box, it's like a Blood Rage.
Oh, okay.
Or an Innis or a Twilight Imperium.
Dang.
Imagine we would excuse their war crimes, but they've yet to do so. In fact, didn't they do just Exploding Kittens?
I think that's a different company, but
Okay.
it's definitely a game of a similar ilk.
Yeah. Like I said.
All right, that was a cool bonus opinion of yours. Thanks for that.
I just had to stoke the flames.
Yeah.
Those are the only flames I feel that need stoking.
Write us your hate mail at mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com. All right, my last one is, hey, when you purchase a video game at launch, it's objectively not a great consumer decision. And this is one thing you could say. I'm going to draw a distinction here. You could say being an early adopter of anything is kind of objectively the worst consumer decision.
Bitcoin.
All right, we're talking about like consuming media.
Okay.
When you
Avatar.
for any piece of media, if you wait, it'll get cheaper. And that's the same for video games. But I think there's a added incentive for video games that differentiate them that make waiting especially worthwhile. That being, these are living, breathing pieces of media that get updated. So many examples spring to mind. How Ghost of Tsushima just released. One of the common criticisms I see in reviews is the game's too easy. And I think an update that just came out added a whole new difficulty option that's harder, which kind of addresses the main criticism that if you're already halfway through your campaign on hard and you're kind of like blah because it's become mundane at this point because you're not being adequately challenged. If you had waited a mere 2 weeks or so, you could have had a better experience, which, I mean, you're not going to get a different story if you watch a movie. So that criticism of waiting for movies kind of evaporates because it's a static piece of media.
Yeah, imagine seeing a movie opening day and the pacing is clunky. And then 2 weeks later, it becomes like a snappy Scorsese masterpiece.
Right. You'd feel gypped if you went in the opening weeks.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's that. When you buy on launch day, you are paying the highest price the game will sell for the objectively least polished, least patched version of the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say lowest quality unless it's a multiplayer game in which you want to have the community all fresh and stuff.
Right, but we just disproved why you'd ever want to play a multiplayer game.
That's full circle. Why would you ever buy a multiplayer game?
All right, so that did factor in. There are two exceptions that came to mind. That if there is a multiplayer game that you want to be there on day one before the meta has developed, yeah, that could be justified. Or also, if there's like a spoiler-heavy game that means a lot to you and you don't want to run any risk of hearing about The Last of Us Part 2.
Last of Us Part 2.
Okay, I could see that. But most video game sales occur in the first month or so that the game is out. I doubt that you are emotionally invested in every video game story coming out. So I think it should be a rare exception that you buy at launch to avoid the spoilers. I don't care about what's going to happen in Doom Eternal, plot-wise.
What if he rips and tears?
When I visit that game in 2021 or 2022, the mechanics are going to be just as engaging as if I had purchased it earlier. Maybe it'll be better because they'll have bug fixes and additional downloadable content and the whole shebang. You played Disco Elysium close to launch. I played it this year.
You're right.
In addition to paying a little bit less money for it, it also had some nice quality of life features when I got around to it, such as on a map, it printed every white skill check I could retry and exactly where to find it, which I don't think was in the original version. So in addition to quality of life improvements, I got the same experience you did. We had a cool conversation about it, even though it's not at launch. I don't see much of an upside to buying at launch, except for the two exceptions I listed. I think you only stand to gain by waiting.
That's an airtight opinion. Again, Chris, I feel like deep down everyone's like, he's got a point.
And then you don't listen to me.
And then, but you still buy them day one. Like, I bought, like, what was the most recent game I bought? Like, Animal Crossing. I bought that, like, day 2.
Yeah, and I think if you're smart, you could argue the merits of buying Nintendo games day one because of their high production values. They rarely launch broken, and they're pretty immune to sales. So you don't really stand to benefit financially by waiting to buy Nintendo games, which I'm mixed about because, first of all, that's kind of anti-consumer just because they keep their prices high, but also they kind of disprove my point. They make a compelling case to buy them day one. I wish the people who are most passionate about your game, who wants to support you right away, I wish there was...
Well, they pre-order.
Yeah, they pre-order. And then they fall prey to these problems I'm highlighting. I wish there was a way to more adequately reward the people who are there on day one. And for a while... For a while, there kind of was. I don't know if you remember this, but on Amazon, if you pre-ordered, you'd get like a 20% discount if you got it day one. But they have since done away with that.
Dang. Because it's not cost effective?
I guess they don't need... I don't know why they did away with it. That was something that was very commonplace a couple years back, but no longer. So yeah, that was my other controversial take.
Don't buy games day one, and don't buy them if they're multiplayer. Imagine if someone could commit all the cardinal sins at the same time.
Yeah.
They
buy Quantic Dream's upcoming multiplayer only narrative game on day one, and they think it is the highest art they have ever experienced.
Very good.
All right. So that's going to be a wrap for episode 45 of Mobius Tubes. Please send us your emails at mobiustubespodcast@gmail.com. This was a long episode, Heath. Observant listeners will notice an 45th episode without Mobius Tunes, so look forward to that next episode.
As well as the video game publisher draft.
Yes, we've been delaying that. We need to readdress our publisher drafts and bid on new games.
In anticipation of quarter 3?
Yeah, we're a month into quarter 3 already.
Oops.
But that's fine.
Under the circumstances.
Yeah. We'll do it before it really matters.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be it, Heath. I hope you have a fun week ahead of you.
I do. I will.
I saw a sneak peek of your episode 46 docket on that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm intrigued.
It's fun.
All right. See you next time.
Catch you later.